Okay, so we're going to talk about the 10 things that happen after your offer is accepted. So, when a seller says they're accepting your offer, the deal immediately goes, as they say, on the clock, and things start happening pretty quickly. And they're all time sensitive steps, and they all come with deadlines. So, in this video, I'll tell you exactly what's going to happen and in what order so you don't mess up. So, on average, most real estate sales take about 2 months to close. The seller accepts your offer by signing it, also known as executing the contract. And an executed contract is just a fancy phrase that means that both parties have signed it. Now it's legally binding. But going forward, the seller has certain duties and you have certain duties. And if either one of you does not perform your duties, the deal can be canceled or someone can be in breach of contract. The first thing that happens is you need to send a copy of the contract to your lender and make your first deposit to the seller, called the earnest money deposit or the good faith deposit. So, earnest money deposits are not required everywhere. In some areas, they don't exist at all. This is a small deposit made right after the seller accept your offer, and it shows that you are very serious about buying this home and committed to the transaction going forward. So, you now have some skin in the game, as the saying goes. It's not extra deposit money. It's part of the overall down payment amount, and you will get it back along with any other deposit monies if the deal falls apart for legitimate reasons. At this point, you're probably wondering, do I need an attorney? The short answer is no. It's not required that you use an attorney, but I do believe that it's very important to be represented by a lawyer in a purchase of a home, particularly your first home. Real estate law is pretty specific, it's detailed, it's time sensitive. So you might be told that a title company can legally handle the entire transaction, and it's true, it can. But while the title company offers legal services, they have an attorney on staff or on retainer who can answer questions for you. But that attorney is there to protect the interests of the title company, not you. So the attorney is not technically representing you. One more note on lawyers. Some states have what's called a 3-day attorney review period, or also known as the right of rescission. If your state has this, it's a 3-day period where your lawyer reviews the signed contract. In this period, both the buyer and the seller can change their mind and have the right to back out of the deal without even giving a reason and without a penalty. So even if your state doesn't have this law, you can put a 3-day contingency in your offer to allow your lawyer to review the contract. I'll explain the other ways to get out of a deal in a minute, but the next three steps are pretty much happening all at once over the next 2 to 4 weeks. So, number two, let's start with the inspection. This is another point where you can get out of the deal. You should schedule the inspection to happen as soon as possible, but usually on a date within 10 to 14 days after the contracts were signed. So if something is wrong with the home, you want to know as quickly as possible. The inspection is often the most difficult and emotionally charged part of the process because repairs and flaws will almost always be found, and deals fall apart all the time over inspection negotiations. You don't want to buy a money pit, and the seller can get pretty defensive, or maybe they're just cheap and don't want to fix things. If you ask for repairs to be made, or even for a cash credit for them, and the seller won't budge, you can use this to walk away from the deal and get your deposit back. Number three, at the same time, the lender is now sending your loan package on this particular home to the underwriting department for final approval of your mortgage. And they begin to build a file on you and make sure that they have all the documents they need. They are also ordering an appraisal to make sure you don't offer more than the home is actually worth. So if the appraiser thinks you overpaid and the home does not, quote, appraise, as they say, then underwriting won't give you the final approval for the loan. But this is not your fault. So you can get out of the deal here too, as long as your contract was contingent on you getting a loan, of course, and most contracts are. So you just have to get the appraisal done by a certain date. Number four, the next thing that happens in this period is that a title company will perform what's called a title search. Here's why you need a title search. Sometimes we learn in the middle of a transaction that the seller is not actually the seller, or that someone else, such as a relative, co-owns the property. Maybe a divorced man is trying to sell, and we learn that his ex-wife's name is still on the deed, and she's not given her permission to sell. Or a sibling is trying to sell a deceased parent's home without the consent of the other siblings. So there are also several different types of liens on a property that will prevent it from being sold. unless the liens are paid off. So these liens include if the seller has unpaid taxes, even money that the seller owes to a contractor. So these kinds of liens are known as clouds on the title, and they can prevent a home from being sold. Once the title company sees that no clouds are on the title, the lender requires that you buy title insurance to protect you and them going forward. Number five, also in this period, will be expected to make a sizable down payment. Typically, it's about half of the total down payment. You usually give about half now and the other half at the closing table. Once the inspection is done and repairs have been negotiated, you've paid the down payment, the final mortgage approval comes in, and the title is clear, you will get a loan commitment letter. But if any of the following happens before closing, you can still lose the loan. Let's say if you make another major purchase, especially one that requires applying for a loan like a car, if you quit or change jobs, if you file for divorce, or if you're getting sued. So don't make any big changes there. Number six, you need to show proof that you bought a homeowner's insurance policy before you can close on the home. And the seller has to get a certificate of occupancy, also known as a CO, or something like it from the local municipality to show that the property is habitable. Number seven, next, it's a good time to open up your utility accounts like gas, electric, and water so you have them in place when you close. Number eight, now we're getting close to closing day. In the last 3 days before closing, the lender will send you what's called a settlement statement or the closing disclosure to be approved and signed by you. So the statement is a legal document that summarizes all the costs and fees associated with this purchase. And it's very important that you keep the closing disclosure handy, as you will definitely need it when you file your tax returns with the IRS. Number nine, closing day. That's when you do a final walk through the property, preferably in the morning of closing, to make sure the house is still standing and in the same condition that it was when you were last in it. You sign all the paperwork, you turn over the remaining portion of the down payment, and you get the keys to your new home. And last but not least, when you walk out of the closing, call your insurance broker to let them know that the closing was successfully completed and that the insurance should now be active. And one more small tip, I always recommend having the locks changed right after closing. You don't know if the seller still has keys or who the seller might have given copies to. So I'm happy to answer any questions in the comments below, and please do hit subscribe, and I'll definitely see you next time.